Hi guys, this is Ranjit, and in this video let's talk about the new Motorola smartphone. That's the Motorola Edge Plus, and this is a flagship Android smartphone that was launched by Motorola. And if you guys recall, the last flagship Android phone that Motorola launched was in 2016, but now they're again coming up with this one. In fact, they have launched two devices. One is the Edge Plus, which is the higher end variant, comes with the Snapdragon 865 and also a regular Edge. So let's talk about it, and I'll also talk about the pricing in the later part of the video. And yes, this is also going to come officially in India. In fact, I had a virtual e-meeting with Motorola global team a couple of days ago. So let's talk about it, because now it's launched. And as you can see from the front, it looks like this, front and back. And again, it's like a modern classic, flagship Android phone, almost edge-to-edge display. In fact, this one is having that edge screen quite a bit, and they have done some tweaks about it. I'll talk about it. And from the back, you look at the triple camera setup. The camera setup is actually interesting. It's a 108 megapixel, but again, I'll talk about it later. Let's move to the next slide. And here, as you can see, this one is having a screen that's a 6.7 inch screen, and it's actually a 90 Hz AMOLED screen. But the surprising thing is that Motorola didn't go with the Quad HD on this one. This is still a full HD plus screen, but it can go up to 90 Hz, and you can select in the menu if you really want to 60, or also there's an option of auto refresh rate. So again, its entire thing is about edge to edge screen. In fact, if you notice the edge, it's like rounded from the corner, like many of the Samsung phones. For example, we saw this aggressive rounding in the Samsung S7 Edge and stuff like that. So it's like that. Here, as you can see that edge screen, and it's almost 90 degrees edge. In fact, Motorola plays around in the UI with that edge screen a little bit. I don't know how comfortable it would be, because prior Samsung phones and other phones that had a lot of edge screen always used to get that accidental touches. So I don't know if Motorola with the software is able to mitigate it or not, but they're using the edge screen for certain interactions. For example, if you look at this next screen, they say that in the gaming mode, if you notice at the top, you have the virtual trigger button. So in some of the games, you can actually use that and use the edge screen part at the top as virtual trigger buttons. I don't know how well this will translate in real world applications. Only when I get a unit, I can test that. But again, they're trying to play around with the edge screen. And if you look at the next screenshot, again, no surprises here. It comes with this flagship Snapdragon 865 SoC for the Edge Plus, and the other variant that is just regular Edge will come with the Snapdragon 765. Again, both these devices are 5G, but the flagship that comes with the Snapdragon 865 supports both the 6 mm 5 GHz band and also the millimeter wave. And in terms of UI, again, it's very close to stock Android. That's Android 10, but Motorola has added some of its customizations, and they call it the Mi UX UI on this one. So again, very close to stock Android, but some additions because they have also added options on the edge screen and all those things. So mostly stock, but yeah, some Motorola additions, and they're calling it the new My UX UI. And now let's talk about the camera, which is again a very important part on the flagships. And if you look at this screenshot, we have a triple camera setup. In fact, the main camera is actually that 108 megapixel. Then we have a wide angle lens and also a zoom. But let's closely look at the main sensor. That's a 108 megapixel. And as you can see from this image, Motorola says that they have used a very large sensor on this one. Hence, even in not that great lighting, you'll get good results, because it's sort of doing pixel meaning by default. And in fact, the regular images that you get will be 27 megapixels with this one. Yes, you can go all the way up to 108 megapixels also if you want, but they're doing that again, that quad pixel binning. So regular size images will be a whopping 27 megapixel on this one. And let's look at the camera in detail. As you can see from this screenshot, actually the two main cameras that will be used, that is the regular camera, is optical image stabilized. That's the 108 megapixel, and also we have 8 megapixel that is for zoom, 3x zoom, and this is also OIS. And the third camera is actually a 16 megapixel ultra wide, and also it has macro vision. That means you can take up actually close-up shots. So they didn't put an extra fourth camera just for macro. They actually implemented implemented of the ultra wide, and some of the samples that we saw in the press briefing and stuff like that in the presentation, the macro camera, the ultra wide camera for macro shots also was doing actually really good. Again, it'll be interesting to see how the camera performs in terms of hardware. The hardware is there on the camera, but it'll be the after image processing that would count. And I don't want to comment too much about it. Some of the samples we saw were good, but again, press samples are always good. It'll be interesting to see how the camera performs. And the front facing camera, I believe, is a 25 megapixel if I'm not wrong. I'll just add if I'm wrong over here. Lastly, this one also as a flagship has the stereo speakers on this one, and they say they have put actually really powerful speakers, so the volume output will be really loud on this one. They say loudest in terms of the volume output among smartphones. Again, that is something I'll have to test. But the good thing is that this smartphone, though it has the stereo speakers and flagship specs, this one retains the 3.5 mm headphone jack, so that's actually a nice thing. And moving to RAM, this will come with actually 12 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, so that's actually good. I was surprised. Yes, 12 gigabytes, that's what you're going to get. And storage will be 256 gigabytes, and of course this is also UFS 3.0 storage with turbo write, so that you get a very fast write. So in terms of storage and write performance, you won't have to worry. And if we move to the battery, as you can see, it has, they say, largest battery. It's actually a 5000 milliamp hour battery, and Motorola says that it should give you about 2 days of battery life, because it's not a quad HD screen, a full HD plus screen, so it's optimized and should give about 2 days worth of battery life. Charging, guys, is fast charging is there, but it's just 18-watt fast charger that is supplied in the box. But this also does support reverse charging, and even wireless charging is there. Reverse charging up to 5 watts is supported, and wireless charging is supported up to 15 watts. So again, in terms of specs, I feel Motorola has given us everything that you want, so that's not a problem. And it will be available in 2 colors. As you can see, they call it midnight magenta and solar black. And lastly, as I've told you, there'll be also one more variant known as the Moto Edge. This is almost exactly the same as that one. And in camera also, instead of that 108 megapixel camera, this will have a 64 megapixel camera, and RAM will be just 4 gigabytes of RAM. And here I'm slightly disappointed, because I was expecting at least 6 gigabytes of RAM, and battery will be 4500 milliampere. In fact, if you look at this last screenshot, this gives you a brief idea about the difference between both those devices, the Motorola Edge Plus and the regular Edge. And yes, I can just confirm the selfie camera is the same 25 megapixel on both these devices. Now let's talk about the pricing. The pricing for United States was announced for the Edge Plus, and it will be about $999.99. That's almost $1,000 US. So if you just convert it in India, the pricing is absurd, I would say, because the dollar is about 76 in India, so about 76,000. But so I don't think so this will be a hit, because Motorola is coming to this flagship range after a long time. Yes, it's almost stock Android without a lot of bloatware and stuff. But again, guys, at this price point, most of the vendors for flagship Android phones are giving quad HD screen. This is a full HD plus screen. So I feel Motorola has to do something like what OnePlus did for the Indian market. For example, if you recall, the OnePlus 8 Pro in US is about almost $900, but in India they priced it at significantly lower at about 55,000. So I feel if Motorola really wants to get into the Indian market specifically, they'll have to actually subsidize it for India like what OnePlus did, because at that price point of about 75,000, again you have to add the 18% GST, it becomes even more expensive than the established players like the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, etc. So I feel yes, the specs actually look good. And now you have an option, Android users have an option of, for example, they have to go with Samsung or OnePlus. So this is a nice option, but I feel for it to be popular in India, they have to really price it well. But I just don't know if Motorola India will do that specifically for India, because past experience shows me that they haven't done it, but it'll be interesting to see if they do it in India or not. Regarding the launch, they didn't give any timelines, but was expecting around the third week of May, that is next month. But again, guys, it'll all depend on the lockdown situation in India. That's what I have got. So they haven't released India pricing yet. We'll know it on a later stage, but I really hope they take a page from what OnePlus has done for the pricing of the smartphones in India. It's considerably lower compared to the international market, and if Motorola India really wants to get back into this game in India, they'll also have to aggressively priced. But what do you think would be the aggressive pricing of this Motorola Edge Plus in India? 70,000, 65,000, 60,000, or like as well as what OnePlus 8 Pro did, but that comes with 128. So yeah, so let me do one thing. Let me actually add a poll and you give a vote, and let's see what happens. And regarding the Moto Edge, again, I feel this one will also come to India, but I didn't like the pricing. For example, in euros, this is almost 700 euros. Again, that is also very, very expensive if you convert Indian pricing. So anyways, guys, this was it for the Motorola Edge Plus and the Moto Edge. It will be coming to India next month. We don't know the exact date because of the lockdown situation, but what do you guys think about this Moto Edge Plus, and what do you think would be the pricing in India, or what should be the pricing what Motorola India does it in India? Would love to hear your comments. So again, share that in the comment section. Anyways, guys, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. This is Ranjit, and I hope to see you in my next video. And guys, take care.